Hey there! Today we're going to be talking about this pen, very attractive material. This is the Magna Carta Urban Amberine, and it certainly looks like amber, what you see there. Amber, very nice. I really like it. Cool thing about this pen, if you like such a thing, and for some of you this might be reason to immediately switch off the video, but it has a Fude Nib. Fude Nib, so slightly upturned nib, kind of simulates a brush. It's not really my thing, but I know a lot of artists like it. So let's have a look at this pen. A very kind thank you to Joost Appelboom for lending me this pen. Remember, if you want one, click the banner on my website, you get 10% discount there. I'm going to cover the parts of the pen, I'll do a writing sample, and I'll tell you what I like about it and what I don't like about it. Let's get started. Okay, let's talk about the Magna Carta, the Urban Amberine. So I wanted to say Ambrosine, but it is Amberine. This pen is €144.63, excluding VAT at Appelboom, but remember, click the banner on my website, you get a 10% discount. This is a pen modeled after a Japanese brush. It has a Fude Nib, so it's really well suited for Asian style calligraphy. I don't know why that's style, so Asian calligraphy, I'm sorry. And Fude Nibs are interesting. If you've never seen one, I'll show you one in just a moment, but they are quite fun, different line widths at different angles. The pen's made of resin and it has an ebonite feed, which is quite cool. So let's see what's in the box. There's a cardboard outer sleeve and whoops, oh yeah, that's on the floor now. And then there is a box. And in the box is a pen condom. There is the Appelboom sticker, which is nice and shiny. And there is the warranty card, which is a sort of credit card shaped and sized thing. Let's try to get those things, out of the way. Here we go with the pen. A very attractive material, I found. And here we see that pen next to a Pilot Metropolitan. So it's a big pen, especially long, not particularly girthy. It's fairly long and skinny. Let's talk a bit about the parts of the pen, because I think I've given you a reasonable background of how much it is and that kind of stuff. Let's see what we have. So this Amberine, I really love this resin on the finial and at the end cap of the barrel. It really does look like amber, and it's a very warm color. I almost want to lick it because it looks like honey. Anyway, I won't lick it. Then you have this beautiful material, which I think is just a very nice resin. For some reason, it looked a bit vintagey to me, this material. We have a clip, steel clip, simple, nice. Then we have a cap that tapers down, ends in what looks like that amber type material again. Notice the taper, it's a nice solid taper. And then we have Magna Carta here in I think it's a blind engraving. It stands out a little bit, but I don't think it's filled with anything. So Magna Carta, quite nice. The cap unscrews. And then we have that nib. Now, if you've never seen a Fude nib, you may think something happened to this nib, because as you can see, it's upturned. But that's the point of a Fude nib. They're upturned, so depending on how you hold it to the paper, you may get a finer or a wider line. It is a steel nib. It does have the Magna Carta logo, and it does say Urban on it, which is quite nice. And you have that nice ebonite feed. Ebonite, we like ebonite, right? It's really good. Has really good flow properties, so it's very nice for feeds. Plus you can heat set it should you want to use this with another nib. Section tapers down, flares out, and I really love it's the same material as the rest of the barrel. I think it would look really cool if it was this material and you kind of had a clear section. But you know, that's just me. The section unscrews, and then you see that this pen is fed by cartridges or converter. In this case, a converter. Seem to have some surface tension issue there, but there we go. Converter. I thought Lamy Mango would be a good color, although it's typically not very useful for reviews, but it's just such a nice match to the pen. Speaking of which, how about we take a look at how it writes. Oh, that shows out beautifully on camera. Sometimes it's yellow inks are difficult. Sometimes you can hardly see them on camera. One of the reasons I like Lamy Mango so much is that you can really see it. It's a yellow, but it has enough orange in it that you can see it, and it shades really nicely. Okay, so obviously Fude, very broad. That's weird jumps, but so for your everyday writing, I don't know how useful this is. Oops, well, there's a big drop of ink just flying out there. So I don't know how great it would be to use this for say my grocery list. But remember, you can vary the angle. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to move away from, and then there's the fast writing. I mean, this is a very specific nib. If I were to be able to do Asian calligraphy, I could do that for you, but I cannot. So we just have to do some experiments. So holding the nib almost perpendicular to the paper, actually perpendicular to the paper, let's see what happens. So here we have P for perpendicular. Now this, oops, I may have oversaturated that feed a little bit. I just have a tissue here. I mean, one second to suck out some of that excess ink. That's a bit much. Okay. So here we have something that would be normal writing. I would say that's a fine nib to maybe a medium nib, but then you really hold it perpendicular to the paper, not very comfortable. Move down a bit. And you get something that is a good medium, or for some brands, a broad. Move down the angle even more. Now I'm holding it at this angle to the page. This is meant to be a D, not a P. And you get a, well, certainly double broad for most brands nib. And if you hold it really flat to the paper, so now that flat foot on the nib is aligned fully to the page, you get an enormously wide line. So that is a lot of fun. Now, for the friends who like weird stuff, upside down writing, sometimes you can do that with these nibs. Now I'm really writing with the very tip of that nib, and for that you might have to use a slightly more saturated ink, but you can get away with a little bit of writing and you get something that's very fine. So you can take this from very fine, I was pushing it a bit too much, to very broad. And it's so smooth that way because you've got the whole side of that nib just touching the paper. Very nice. So if you like a nib that gives you some options, maybe not for writing on small forms and taking notes in classes, that sort of stuff, but if you want something that stands out, or you're an artist, or you do Asian calligraphy, in which case you may also very well be an artist, right? Calligraphers are artists. I think you may really enjoy this pen. Final thing I wanted to say is it does post, and then it becomes quite long, but you can post it. So a lot of fun with this pen. Let's talk about some likes and dislikes. Things I like and things I don't like about this pen. 144 euros, you're getting into a more expensive-ish range. Not expensive as fountain pens go, but there are more affordable pens out there. For that price, I do think you get a very nicely made pen, and I do really like the material. It's a very attractive pen. The Fude Nib is fun. Again, it's not my thing, but that's just purely subjective. There's nothing wrong with Fude Nibs. I just don't really use them because I don't do that style of calligraphy, sort of Asian characters calligraphy. I'm not an artist. That's best for everyone. So I'm not a Fude guy. Having said that, I think the pen has very nice proportions. It is a bit like a brush in that it is really quite long. I find it very comfortable. The section is very comfortable. The step down from the barrel is really quite nice. Big, long section that's very comfortable for me to hold. Nice posting, which works very well. And I just love the translucency that you get near the top of the cap, and then the actually translucent amber type material. I'm just going to call it that because I'm not convinced that it's actual amber, but it certainly looks like amber. Looks neat, and it's a nice touch. Nice writer. So I like all these things. Things I don't like so much. Well, as I said, 144 euros for a steel nib. Then you get into the area of this, at this price could start to be a gold nib. So there is that. For me, the biggest issue was that when I got it and I cleaned it, and I've said this many times, but I'll say it again, when I get in a new pen for review, I always flush it out with water and some dishwashing detergent. Then copious flow through of just regular water, and then I ink it up. And in this case, the pen simply would not write. It refused to put down any ink. And then I squeezed some ink into the feed through the converter, and it would write for, I don't know, 2-3 words, and it would be dry again. And it kept doing that. And I tried everything, I flicked it, I tried everything to get ink into the feed. It would not work. I was a little nervous about that, but the trick I have found that works best for me in those kinds of cases, barring an absolutely defective product, is to pull the nib and feed if you can. And you kind of need to know if you can, but you can figure that out. In this case, you can. I take a soft toothbrush and I put pure dishwashing detergent on it. And I found that sometimes in these cases there is some oily residue on the feeds, and that will stop ink flow. So if you then kind of not really scrubbing, but just gently brush the feed all around, and then I do the same thing for the nib. Then I completely wash that off, because dishwashing detergent, that can act as a surfactant, and then it makes your ink flow really richly, and you get a super wet, it's not very nice. Put it back together, and then it works straight away. So I think that was the issue. So if you get one and it doesn't write straight away, nib and feed, they pull out. It's pretty simple. They only go in one way again, so it's easy to align things. Maybe try that out. That's all I have. I think there was another thing I wanted to say, but I forgot, and I don't want to keep you here all day. Yes, another thing I like, ebonite feed, because that is nice flow, especially with a richer, wider nib like this Fude. And that's all there is to it. So a very kind thank you to Joost Appelboom for lending me this pen. I really appreciate it. And that's all there is to it. I'll gladly see you later.